Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to 22 Pounds. I have my friend Sarah, who's a librarian, joining me guest hosting today. And fresh off at Emerald City, our guest this morning is Jeffrey Brown. Good morning, Jeff.
Morning.
So sorry, your flight decided to be delayed. That
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
was Emerald City though?
Emerald City was great. I hadn't been in Seattle in like over a decade. I hadn't been to Emerald City like even longer than that. So it was, way bigger than the last time I was there. And it was great. People were great. Um, yeah, I had a good time. I wish I could have seen more of the city. That's
Yeah,
my only
that's
regret.
that's a common refrain with comic comic people who get to go to the cons that they wanted to go to. It's like, yeah, but nobody paid for me to stay or to show up 2 days early and leave two
Yeah.
days late so I can actually see something outside of the convention center.
Yeah, I mean it's good. It was, like I was busy enough that I didn't actually I got to walk around Artist Alley a little bit, but I didn't
Okay.
even make it to
Oh,
the
nice.
main show floor, which
Okay.
is both great and not great. Like would
Right.
have been nice to see like go check everything out, but I did get to go around Artist Alley and talk with some people,
Yeah.
friends I hadn't seen in a while and
Very cool. I like Artist Alley at any con for that reason. Um, Emerald City's on my list. I know
Hmm.
our friend John Lees and Adam Cahoon were out there this year. We were a little jealous when he told us that. So, what do you have coming up next? Let's start with actually selling stuff, and then we'll get into Jeff Brown.
okay. Yeah, what's next? Oh, well, the big thing coming out this year is the sequel to my middle grade Batman book, Batman and Robin and Howard. And so think I don't know if the first issue is out yet, but so what they're doing is they're splitting the original Batman and Robin and Howard book into four pamphlet comics and
Okay.
releasing them one
Nice.
a month, um, which is pretty cool. So like it'll be like an actual Batman comic, not
Right.
just the graphic novel. And then the sequel will start coming out, and that's split into three, I think. Well, wait, 32, 48, something like that. I forget the page counts now. I think it's 48, three 48-page books. Or like I'm not sure if it'll be pamphlets or if it'll have like enough that it'll have a little spine. And then it'll be collected this fall.
So it looks like we timed things really, really well, and Batman and Robin and Howard #1 comes out on March 13th. So,
Okay,
so, so,
nice.
so a week from Wednesday, if you want your single issue version of Batman and Robin and Howard, which I'll admit that I was trying to squeeze it in with so much of the stuff that you've done in the last decade that I hadn't read to my grandkids yet. Um, but I haven't read it since the free comic book day
Yeah,
release before it
yeah.
came out. So tell us about Batman and Robin and Howard.
Yeah, so it's a middle grade book, and so in my story, Batman is of course Bruce Wayne, billionaire, and in my story, his son is Damian Wayne, and Damian is also Robin, Batman's sidekick. And uh, the
But
basic
but but not quite as vicious as the Damien that we
yeah, so
know.
there's like so so in the comics, like Damien can be very cutthroat. He's very angry. He's like,
Well, he is the
um,
grandson of
you
Ra's al
know,
Ghul.
like he's a very serious boy.
Yeah.
Um, but but then I also um watched Teen Titans Go, the
Okay.
cartoon, a lot with my
Love
kids,
that.
and that Robin has a little bit of that, but it's like, it's softened by being the cartoon. But
Right.
what I kind of wanted to do was like I whenever I'm doing Star Wars or superheroes, I like to ground it in real life and real experiences. And so I tried to get at like, the, my Damien is he's he gets a little angry, he gets he's a little cocky, but it's more grounded in the same kind of experiences that any middle schooler has, like trying to fit in. And you have the added layer of his dad. His dad is, not only this like famous um businessman, or I don't know what the word I'm looking for, celebrity philanthropist guy,
Billionaire.
but he's
Billionaire.
also, like this like incredible superhero. So there's like these expectations of things. Um, and then I drew in my own experience as being a dad, and made Bruce Wayne at times like is, he's a bit awkward, and he doesn't like know how to relate to Damian always. Um and it's like, whether it's, having a bad dad joke, or just being kind of like not knowing what to say. um and so I tried to get, like at like this kind of real emotional story between the characters, um as opposed to, just the direct, like, your grandfather was like this immortal assassin
Right.
guy, and that's why you're how you are.
Right.
And so the first book, um Robin, or Damien, is at this new school, meets this kid Howard. Um, they start off as kind of rivals, because Howard is also like, he's pretty athletic, he's smart, like he everyone likes him, and Damien thinks, like, like views it as like, I've got to, establish my alphaness. So they say, and then for Howard, it's like, who's like he thinks he's going to help this new kid out, and then the new kid is kind of like replacing him. And so they start off as kind of rivals, and over the course of the book, become friends and learn how to work together. Um, and then the second book, uh, you have, um, it's called Summer Breakdown, and so they're off from school, and Howard and Damien are interning at Wayne Corps. But it's also like, some of that is Robin being on patrol while Howard sits in the back cave and you know monitors. And they've got this science project they're working on. But then a mysterious new villain uh, enters the picture, and um, yeah, I don't. I guess I shouldn't. I haven't figured out how to talk about things without spoiling it too much. But there's some more. I again, I try to explore, some of the family dynamics with Damien and his
W-
dad. And
When in doubt, my dad way of answering questions that I don't want to spoil things is, and hilarity ensues and lessons are
yeah, yeah.
learned.
With
One thing I've
yeah,
noticed, oh sorry.
no,
One
go ahead. Yeah.
one thing I've noticed with the kids that I give your books to and everything, like even, the Batman and Robin and Howard, or, some of your other Star Wars books too, like what they really are drawn to, these kids, is how real everything feels. Like I've had kids say, like, my dad acts like that sometimes, or my dad tells those kinds of jokes sometimes too. And it's so much fun watching these kids sort of like really create like a new relationship with these heroes that they've
Hmm.
they've known for so long, and be able to kind of find a new side of them.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I like to think that like my version of Batman is like a little different from, any version that's been done before. And yeah, I have a lot of fun like getting a new take on the character. It's one of the things I like about like Batman, especially, I feel like has a lot of different iterations that
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
um like whether it's just within the comics, or when you talk about the films and TV, like there's different Batmans, but they're all Batman. And
Right.
um it's fun to like be able to draw on the mythos, but also kind of have your own spin on it.
So you've done a lot of licensed stuff recently, from the Star Wars books and Thor and Loki, Batman, X-Files. What kind of guidelines do you wind up getting in terms of because you're writing at middle grade, and obviously for a lot of this stuff, you're gonna want to have it be set in a different universe if we're going to use like comic book terms. Um, so I mean, do you have pretty much free reign, or are there parts that they say this still needs to be the way it is? How does that work?
Yeah, it varies from project to project, but my my way of dealing with it is I go into it and just make it the thing I want to make. And if if there's a part that I need to pull back on or change or I like I worry about that after and then reconfigure.
Right.
Um so like and and also I go into it kind of knowing the worlds enough that
Right.
I'm not going to do anything that's so out of line, I guess.
Right. Well,
Like,
I
yeah,
assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you're fans of the world that you're working in. So you're not like, oh, I've never seen Star Wars, but they offered
yeah,
me money to write Star Wars. Let me go learn Star
yeah.
Wars.
I mean, like I grew up with Star Wars. I was
Right.
always this huge Star Wars fan. Drawing Star Wars was like one of my childhood dreams.
Right.
Um, Same with like Marvel and DC. Like
Right.
I grew up with superhero comics. Like Batman was always my favorite DC character. Um, Thor and Loki, like one of my favorite comics reading when I was growing up in the 80s was the Walt Simonson run of the Thor comics where he was writing and drawing the series. And um, so it definitely comes from a place of like not not purely nostalgia, but like, like I appreciate the story and everything.
So, one of the questions that I've always had since the first time I saw uh uh your name on a Star Wars middle grade book, uh, because I've been reading you since Clumsy. I read Clumsy. I
Yeah.
read Unlikely. It feels unlikely that the guy who wrote Unlikely would wind up writing and
Yeah.
drawing. And I assume that, as I read it, as I read some of your more recent autobio stuff, it makes more sense because, it kind of your life follows, as you became a father, you got to write the
Yeah.
kids stuff, but still like talk to me about how that first opportunity came and kind of what it felt like when somebody said, "Hey, do you want to write the kids Star Wars book?"
Yeah, I mean it happened it's like all kind of an accident. I mean for anyone listening who doesn't know, Clumsy was my first book. It's autobiographical book about a relationship, definitely for adults, but it's about like, the most awkward, embarrassing everyday life moments. Just well, not always awkward and embarrassing, but
Often awkward and
often
embarrassing.
often awkward and embarrassing and
I
like,
related too
sweet
much.
and um and I uh, like like I said, I always like to draw like the personal into whatever I'm working on. Now when I was doing Clumsy and Unlikely, I was also doing um like parody humorous stuff. I did like a superhero parody and I did a Transformers parody called Incredible Change Bots. Um and what it's just one of those things where at some point I had met this guy Ryan. Um, we'd either traded mini comics or he gave me his little zine and bought my comics, or I don't remember the exact meeting,
Right.
but years later he was at Google working on the Google Doodle team. And um, no, like so normally they have the team um, creates the doodle. So for the holiday season, there's like a special doodle on the homepage. Um, but every once in a while they'll invite an outside artist to draw the image. And he called me up out of the blue and was like, "Hey, I we have this idea for a Google Doodle with Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader." And their idea was, how awkward it would be if they were just doing something every day. Like, and so instead of fighting with lightsabers, they're grocery shopping or, having to, go out to dinner. Um, and Brian thought I'd be good for it because awkward everyday life
Absolutely.
stuff, but I'd also done humorous science fiction and also he knew I had become a dad at that point.
Right.
Um, so I was like, yeah, that like I would love to do that. So he called me up like sometime around like 5 in the evening, and I went home and I was like, my son was 4 at the time. I thought Luke Skywalker should be 4. I'm Vader's in my shoes, and and I can use like dialogue from the movies. And I just thought of like all these things that, that I was going through, like trying to get my son to go to bed. And like, so here's Darth Vader trying to get Luke to go to bed. And here's a line from the movie that fits that situation. Um, so I did up like a dozen sketches that night, sent them in. Um, and he was like, I wasn't expecting to have these in my inbox this morning. Um, but in the end, Google decided not to use the idea. And I uh, was kind of bummed. I thought maybe I could just, draw it up as like a mini comic to give out to friends for free because I don't want to get in trouble. Um, but one of my publishers was Chronicle Books. I'd done like these cute cat comics with them. And I was like, Chronicle has also done a lot of books with Lucasfilm. I wonder if they would like if we could take this to Lucasfilm together. So I talked to my editor and he was like, "Yeah, that'd be great." So I did some like more finished drawings to go with the sketches, and we went to Lucasfilm, and they liked the idea. And um, Initially, the book was intended to be an adult book. It was meant to be, like books for people like me who grew up with Star Wars, now are grown up and have kids, and here's here's the situations that we can commiserate about. But kids kind of co-opted it, and like from the start, I was hearing like from people are like, I really like your book, but my kid keeps taking it, and
Well, I mean, I'll say the first book I read my granddaughter was Vader's Little Princess.
Mhm.
Um, so I mean, for me, what it always was it's like it's the book for both of us.
Hmm.
It's you
Yeah,
get to enjoy
and
it, but so do I.
yeah, and so I mean, I'd like to say that like that was like the brilliant plan of mine, but it was really like just kind of pure luck that or or something that like that it worked out like that it became like this truly all ages book where and I mean I went into it trying to make it so that it was accessible if you're not like if you just knew the basics of Star Wars, like most people know who Darth Vader is, and if you know that, like that's enough to get a lot of the humor. But then there's also, little deeper cuts with some of the inside jokes about like, who shot first, Han or Greedo, or there's references to like some more um deeper fan kind of interests. Um yeah, so that kind of it kind of turned into a kid's book. And while I was working under a Fader and Son at Lucasfilm, Scholastic came in and said, "We want to do this. We want to do a middle grade book where it's middle school, but in the Star Wars universe, like heavily illustrated, like Diary of a Wimpy Kid." Um, and my editor at Lucasfilm, uh, John Rinsler, um, said, I'm working with this guy on a book like that he's cartoonist writing and drawing. You should ask him if he'd be interested. So Scholastic called me and like pitched the idea to me, and I was like, yeah, that also sounds like fun. Um, And so then I'm doing middle grade books. And so it wasn't, it wasn't a plan, but it felt very natural. And then, like my son Oscar was growing up and, you know, entering middle grade as I'm writing these Jedi Academy books. And yeah, it just made sense from there.
So what does he think about all of the like the Jedi Academy and Vader and Son and things?
Um, I don't know. Like it's like a weird, like it's not something I'm gonna sit down and like be like, so Oscar, tell me, what do you think about your father's career as a author? I mean, like he definitely liked them, like like now he's in high school and it's like grown out of it a little bit. I like to think that he thinks it's cool, but also I'm, his dad. So
I mean,
I am like the
one of the
goofball.
one of the funniest things I've ever heard on our show was when Tom King told us that his it's not that his kids aren't fans of the fact that he works in comic books, but his son likes to inform him that Dan Jurgens is a better Superman writer.
Yeah,
I, I think that's kind of the nature of the beast. It's like, you know,
yeah,
even if you're a comic fan, yeah, but that's my dad. I don't
yeah.
want to.
I will say that like one of like the most like one of my favorite memories is the when um Oscar came home from school. They had a book fair, and he came home and he's like, Dad, guess what book they had? And he pulls out a copy of Jedi Academy. He's like, They had your book. I got your book for the book fair.
Oh,
And it was like
oh
just
my
so
gosh.
amazing. And it's like,
And you're sitting
it's
there. We've
like,
got a stack of those in
yeah,
the garage.
I have like a stack of like 50 of those upstairs. But
But this
um
is from the book fair, Dad.
Right.
yeah, and so it's like it was just like it was just like this unbelievable thing to him that like it was my book, but it was there. So
See,
um
you should have gone and pulled the Neil Gaiman at the book fair. You heard
oh
what
it's
Neil Gaiman at like airport and train station bookstores will go find his books and sign them and put them back on the shelves. So, I mean, you could be the guy that goes to the book fair with your son and just signs a whole batch of. But yeah,
yeah.
no. What is it like to? I mean, did you ever? Because I remember that I'd go to the book fair with. I mean, we went during the day, but then mom and
Yeah.
dad would always take me back at night.
Um
Um, because at least at my school,
yeah.
it's like you got one book for free, but you could come back and you could buy stuff. And my family
Yeah.
was big readers, so we'd go back and we'd buy stuff. So I mean,
Yeah, the way his school did it is it's no parents and it's
okay,
only during the day.
okay,
And they what they do is the older kids help the younger kids shop.
okay.
Oh, I love that.
That's
So
pretty
so
good.
like you send them with their little envelope with like and you write how much is in the envelope and their name
I love it.
and then you like and a lot of times it'd be like near the holiday so you'd write if they're shopping for themselves or
Right,
for like
Hmm.
if they're also buying a gift for a sibling.
right.
And then like the yeah and then the older kids would
Help them
uh
find this stuff.
help
Okay.
them like pick things out and like I think they actually had them like running the sixth graders are running the cash register. I don't know. I wasn't
Right.
there. I'm
Right.
just
So
imagining.
you didn't
But
have to have the awkward moment where some parent looked at your doodle of yourself on the back of the book and went, wait a minute, are you
no.
hawking?
Yeah.
See, I love that idea too, because then
Yeah,
like and the book that child chooses, like it is truly what they want.
they
It's
choose.
it's
Yeah,
not mom and dad saying like,
you
oh, well
should read
let's get
this.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Or like,
Right,
steer them away from something like, oh, you don't want to read
right,
that. I
Yeah.
mean,
right,
sometimes like I do that because it's like I know, like I know you, I know this book.
right,
Trust me. But sometimes it's like when it's something that you don't know as a parent,
right.
and like it's important to let the kids guide. I mean,
Absolutely.
I find that both my kids have been really good about, choosing things that are appropriate for them, like
Hmm.
because they know, like my younger son doesn't like horror. And so like he just shies away from that stuff. Like he just self self edits the
Right.
like his selection um and so it's like you can trust kids quite a bit, I think.
I agree.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like a lot of adults forget that, that kids they know what's right for them.
They certainly forget it for other people's kids.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, when I think like when I think about growing up, like my parents, they didn't they didn't really like, and my dad was a minister, and um they trusted me. And did I like read things that like maybe they wouldn't like, or um probably like did I read anything like super inappropriate at any age? No. Like, but I did manage to find like weird things that I probably wouldn't have found otherwise, that like inspired me, and um that expanded my ideas of like what books could be and what stories are.
Well, I've always said as a parent, there's a lot to be said for controlled exposure.
Hmm.
Just because I don't want you to do something, if I don't want you to do something, I probably want you to read about it even more because then you can live through somebody else's experience to decide, yeah, that doesn't seem like the thing to do,
Hmm.
Yeah.
rather than, well, what would this be like? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the purpose of books. It's particularly the purpose of fiction is to help us feel and think about things without having to
Yeah.
suffer the like long-term consequences. It's one
Yeah.
thing to cry because of a book, and it's another thing to cry because you didn't ever learn that, running the red light because you felt like it was a bad idea.
Yeah.
You know.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, there are these studies that show that horror is actually really like horror and suspense is actually really good for kids because it teaches them resilience. It teaches them how to deal
Hmm.
with hard situations. And a lot of times, again, in children's literature, I had a professor who said, when you're writing a story for a kid, you take them into the dark, part of the forest, but then you always lead them out into the light and
right.
everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, it just occurred to me, and you started doing primarily, or at least it feels like primarily, middle grade books about 10 or so years ago.
Hmm.
Does that feel about
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Um, and it just occurred to me that in some ways, because you also just collected Clumsy, Unlikely, and AEIOU as one
Hmm.
book. I know that you do the con circuit. Are you starting to have anybody that like grew up on Jedi Academy encounter
Yeah.
your earlier work in a way that's meaningful for them now
Yeah.
because it's the right age for them now?
Yeah, so I used to joke about that was my plan, was like I'm just like raising this new generation to like get into those books. But it was actually this weekend at Emerald City was the first time um there was a guy that came up and he's like, like I started out when I was little with your Vader books, and then I was read the Jedi Academy, and then I like was in high school, and now I read Clumsy, and like it's like I rediscovered your work, or like just
Right.
like exactly what you're saying, like it's like someone who grew up with those books and then found the adult stuff. And yeah, so it's pretty amazing. It's not like it's not something that I would necessarily think like is going to happen a ton,
Right.
because I think you know they're they are so different, but
Yeah, but uh, what occurs to me, and I was rereading part of Every Girl is the End of the World for me. In part because I talked to, I don't know if you know Patrick Horvath. He's doing a fantastic book called Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees.
oh
It's like
yeah,
the
yeah.
it's like the Berenstain Bears with a serial
Uh-huh.
killer. Um,
Yeah.
when I was talking to him and off air, I mentioned that I had you coming up. He's like, "Oh, you have to tell him that he's like my favorite." And Every Girl is the End of the World for me, like changed my life.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, but what occurs to me is that lots. I mean, if there's one thing that's really really common in the comic community, so much that it becomes the caricature, is a lot of us are introverted and awkward. We generally want to do the right thing, but 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 then, particularly as you grow up, it's like, oh, but you also want the girl, and the people who are not doing the right thing seem to be getting what
Uh-huh.
navigating that whole thing. It is like scary for so many people. And again, that much more so. I mean, I think the comic community just seems to attract the type of people that in some ways I mean, I remember once, when I was working at a comic shop, there were a couple girls that would always come into that comic shop because I actually talked to them a lot. And, they're like, anytime else we go to a comic shop, it's like nobody, I'm like, they don't know how to talk to girls. They never figured it out. They're scared. And they're like, oh, but we just like superheroes too. I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
So I mean, in some ways, I guess where I'm going is I think that you're what I appreciated, because your books were also like my first real foray into autobio comics. I was mostly a superhero slash Vertigo guy when I came across
Hmm.
Clumsy. And that wound up opening this whole other world. Um, but but one of the reasons I came across it was because it appealed so much more to so many of the people that were your superhero Vertigo guys,
Yeah.
that it was, so yeah, that I think makes it even cooler that you did continue to grow up, manage to make it work, because that gives us all hope. I mean, I have a wife and kids and grandkids now, but you know what I mean. To be able to watch you go through, and then you have the wife,
Yeah.
you have the kids. I read a Matter of Life this week, and it was great. Seeing you be a parent,
Yeah.
having remembered seeing you being a very awkward late teenager.
Yeah. Which,
um,
yeah. I mean, I look at those at that old work and it's a different it's a different person, and so
yeah, I mean, I
it's
can barely remember who I was at 18. I think I would be mortified if that was literally my next question. I mean, I assume that you had to go back and look at it a little bit for the new edition, or did you have editors that just took that all
uh
away from you?
I
What's it
I
like to go back and
I tried to look at it as little as
if
possible.
possible?
I mean, it was, I don't know, like it's hard because it's like those are like their stories, but then there are also memories there.
Right.
And um like in the end, for me, the experience of art, both making and viewing, is about like understanding the world better. And um I think, like, so those that's kind of what those books mean to me, is like it was a way of me like sharing my stories and feeling less alone, and understanding that like other people also went through these things, and I like it wasn't like I wasn't just alone in the universe. um and yeah, so I don't know. I mean, just in general with my books, I tend to move on like from like I did the 3 books of Jedi Academy, and then I was like, I'm ready for something different and new. And then that's the thing. And so I don't tend to revisit old work so much. I kind of like it's just kind of like I'm more interested in making and experiencing something new and like
Okay.
finding that out. But yeah, I don't know. I in terms of being mortified by those stories, like I think that's maybe a bigger question for my kids
Yeah.
someday.
That that that
But
that that that
but
was the brief follow-up before
yeah,
before the segue here is as has Oscar discovered them yet?
no. Hopefully he never does. I mean it's but like
You're
I
gonna arrange for them to go out of print
yeah.
right before he goes to college to make certain that they don't show up on a syllabus.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think
I've seen clumsy on college syllabuses. I'm just throwing that out there.
I th I think the thing is like it's about owning that like I say awkward and embarrassing, but like the embarrassment kind of goes away once
Yeah,
you own those things. It's
yeah.
Mm.
like being able to laugh at yourself and like admit that like you were an idiot, like
I
I
actually
yeah,
I just last night I was out to dinner with my son and his partner who I was meeting for the first time. And my son was just like cringing because of course I brought out the embarrassing stories, but he was also, they were like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "No, because it is funny." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's something I tried to really instill in him is that like you can be embarrassed and shamed in the moment, but 5 minutes from now, you should know that it's funny. And if a
yeah,
week from now you don't know it's funny, then maybe we need to talk to the therapist about it."
yeah. Well,
You know?
I mean, there's not enough time for all the therapy I need,
Well, yeah.
um, but yeah, I think like I've always thought that it's like it's only embarrassing if you let it be, and if you own it, then it's like
I mean, it's still embarrassing, but it's a different
yeah,
kind of embarrassing.
yeah. Well, what's amazing to me is all like there's so many stories that are like so hyper specific, and I thought like this is like people might have similar embarrassing stories, but people will be like, I had that exact same
Exact
thing
same
happen.
thing.
Like,
Mm.
and you realize like, oh, it's like, and it's, there's something to like, it's like making fun of someone for wetting the bed, and you realize like there's a lot of people who wet the bed.
Right.
Like it's like, and not just kids.
Right.
So,
Hmm.
um, you know, is it something you want to go share with everyone? No, but is it something like that, like you need to feel less of a person because? No.
So you're
And
saying
so,
you
yeah,
don't want the tagline for this episode to be Jeffrey Brown talks about how he wets the bed.
I mean, I
I mean,
like
we need
it.
clicks, Jeff.
Yeah, that'll get you the clicks.
No, it won't.
Maybe we can workshop that.
Not like you'll branch out into a whole new audience
We
there.
we we
Get a expand
Oh, that
the
was good.
listening
That was
audience. Yeah.
good. I like
Yeah.
that. So this segues nicely to one of my favorite questions to ask in general. Kind of give me your comics autobiography. And I mean, obviously you've written your comics autobiography, but like, where did you fall in love with comics? How did you decide that comics is what you wanted to do? Where, what is the story of your relationship with comics?
I mean, well, I've always been a big reader, and I've always loved drawing. And um so even before comics, just illustrated books. Um, but so there's a the first two key things were when I was a kid reading newspaper comics. And so starting with Garfield was the biggest probably, but then Far Side, Calvin and Hobbes, Bloom County were the other big ones. But like I read all the newspaper comics. Um, and like I would draw, like I would come up with my own funny comics, and the experience of like having someone see something you drew and like laughing, like I like that. Um, so that was part of it. And I liked writing and drawing, and um I would make my own little picture books or illustrated books, like little 8-page stories with drawings. Um, but one of the big uh picture books for me was called Small in the Saddle by Mark Allen Stamati. Um, it's not in print anymore, um, but it mixes in comic a lot of comics language, and that's because he actually um, for years did a strip called MacDoodle Street, which has been collected, and I highly recommend. Um, but it was like an adult strip. He also did political comics called Washingtons, and um, but then he did like a bunch of picture books. There's a Who Needs Donuts and Yellow Yellow, I think, are both back in print in various forms, um, but his mix of like humor and weirdness and like the language of comics in the stories was like a big inspiration. And then of course then I got into superhero comics, and I think part of that was through my brothers, although neither of them was ever nearly as much a comics fan as me. Um, but we would go to the grocery store. They had a little spinner rack. And I remember like when I got to the age where I had my own money, my own allowance, I had like $1.25, and going to the spinner rack, and this is the first time I could buy comics on my own. And um, X-Men 193 was out, which was $1.25 because it's like a double-sized issue.
Mhm.
But they still had copies of issue 192, which was 65 cents. And then there was like an issue of Spider-Man or something. I was like, I had enough that I could either get the double-sized issue or I could get two. And I got, even though like the cover of 193 is like, Wolverine and action, um, and he's like Wolverine is in like literally in like one or two panels in issue 192. It's a weird issue, but I was like, I can get twice as many comics if I get this one. Um, and it's a weird issue. It's not like necessarily like the most action packed, but there was something about it that just like grabbed me. Um, and from then on, I was a huge X-Men fan, and um, yeah, so like superhero comics were a thing. Um, then so started going to the comic shop to get my comics, and would go there like I would get off the well, no, I in elementary school I just walk there from school, but like, and then as I got older into high school, like I was taking the bus home, and I would just get off two stops early to on Wednesdays, or I don't know if it was Wednesdays back then still, or if it was Tuesdays or Thursdays or whichever new comics day was new comics day. Um, and as I got older, the black and white stuff started happening with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And that also like became an entryway for a lot of the European comics. So, and then also the the like uh the 90s indie comics. Like so I had the European comics, like Mobius was probably like my favorite. I got really into Mobius from there. Got in well, the guy at the shop would he would like recommend stuff, and one day he was like, here, you should try this, and he you can have this. I'm gonna give this to you because I think you would like it. And so I was in high school, and he gave me a copy of Eight Ball, an issue of Eight Ball by Dan Clowes, and that was like mind opening. Yeah, so then from there, like read it was like Eight Ball and Dirty Plot, which is the Julie Doucet series. Um, those were like my favorites. Yeah, and then there was like this hiatus, um, like when I was in college and I was like spending my money on other stupid stuff, and I weirdly still going to
Music and girls.
yeah, like I was still well music. I was still going to the comic shop, but I was like I would just never buy anything until um like shortly before I moved to Chicago, like the summer before I moved to Chicago to go to the school, the Art Institute. I was at the shop, and for some reason, well, there's new issues of Eight Ball with the David Boring storyline, and I was like, oh yeah, Eight Ball, um and then there was an issue of Chris Ware's Acme Novelty Library, and like and I was like, that looked way different than anything, and so and then I like was found like Chester Brown's comics and all these and James Gachalka, and all of a sudden there was like this whole like rediscovery of comics through like starting with Eight Ball, which I'd read, but like then all these other comics that I hadn't um seen, and then I was like going back and buying back issues, and yeah.
What was the name of the store, and do you know if it's still there?
Oh, so Collector's Corner was the store um initially, and it's still there.
Arnie's Collector's Corner.
Yep. But Kirby Tardy was the owner, and he sold it a few years back. Um, so it was him, and then there was another guy that was working there, um, who like yeah, they were that store was huge because they had they had all the mainstream stuff, but they had like they had just had like seemingly like every weird, cool, random comic.
Oh, I'm pretty
And
certain I've been here.
and then there was another store called Apparitions in Grand Rapids, and I don't think Apparitions is still there. Um, but that was the store. Like I, it was like a new store, and they also had used books, and I had sold. Let's see, I sold a bunch of Magic cards there, and Star Wars toys. I sold stuff there, and so I was because they would buy that stuff, and that but that's where I saw the David Boring and the Acme Novelty Library, and like um yeah.
It does look like Apparitions has closed. Always, always sad when the comic shops are no longer there. But Grand Rapids has a surprisingly good number of really good comic
Yeah,
stores.
there's another store called Argos, I think. I don't know if
That's
that's
right.
still there. Um
I know I like
that
Vault of Midnight too.
yeah, Vault of
It's a
Midnight
newer one.
came later.
Yeah,
Uh I forget the other stores, but yeah, it was there was like
Argos
kind
is
of
still there.
yeah, so Argos was the other one. I would get back issues there. I That was where I found for $1 Chris Ware's Floyd Farland
Oh
comic.
wow,
Um so
that. is cool. So that and I know you're fresh off Seattle, so I don't want to keep you too much longer, but that leads perfectly to my favorite last question to ask. And then I'll let Sarah ask anything that she may have missed. Um, but what's a comic that you adore that you don't feel like enough people have read? You need more people to talk to about it.
Huh. Um, well, I'm just gonna say the first one that came to mind. The
Yes.
I think one of the and bias because it's a friend who made it, but Paul Hornschmeyer's The Three Paradoxes. Um, it's a it's like an autobiographical book that mixes in philosophy, but also um, does these visual twists on genre where like when Paul tells a story of being in high school, he's drawing like the like 1970s John Byrne comics that he was reading at the time.
Okay.
And then when it's like when he's a kid, it's drawn in like this Dennis the Menace style. And then um so visually it's like really interesting, but it's a really quiet introspective story about kind of life and creativity and um trying to make something. And uh I I I when I teach, I like using it because you can hit on a lot of different aspects of what comics does really well, whether it's humor or motion or movement and mixing text and then just visually like how he uses those different styles. So
Yeah, that's been on my list to read for a while, and this is the second time Hornschmeyer has come up with this question. Karen Green listed Mother Come Home as one of the books that she wanted more people to read.
yeah,
Um,
that was one of like his kind of breakthrough book,
well,
very heavy emotional
well.
book also.
So, Sarah, you got anything else?
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering, you've gotten to meet and work with so many really amazing people. Was there one person that, you've interacted with who had said like, "Oh, I really enjoy your work," that, kind of gave you that like lightning feeling of like, okay, like I've kind of made it, or like this is really amazing.
Um, I mean, it's happened more times than I can count. But actually, it happened at Seattle. Um, like, so I was at my table and I was busy, and I saw Stan Sakai come by,
Oh,
Oh,
and he was like, he was kind of
oh my God.
looking at me, and I was like, oh, is he gonna stop by? But then he like kept walking. But the next morning, before the show opened, he came by and was like, I really like your books, and I was just like.
uh, but, but
But
Usagi.
um it's like and I'd actually met him like years like I mean like probably like somewhere between 15 and 20 years ago when I was
Right,
like just starting and I got like he signed like one of I got one of his Usagi collections and had
right.
him sign it and um but yeah like he came up and we talked for a little bit and um he signed a book for my younger son. Like it's just like if kid me knew like,
Yeah,
hey, like
yeah,
you're reading like someday he's gonna come up.
right.
Like, you know, um, so that yeah, it's probably the highlight of Seattle for me. And but I mean like it's it's I mean I should know this. Like, really, people are good, and
Yeah.
like comics. There's like most comics people, comics creators are like just nice, good people,
Well,
and
Sarah and I were
kind
talking about this off air, and it's come up a lot. comics is not an easy business to begin with, but it's really not an easy business if you're not a good person, because there are two ways to make it in comics. Either by doing everything yourself, in which case you're going to do a lot of hand selling, which means if you're a jerk at your table, they're not buying, or you're collaborating with a lot of people, which means that if you're a pain in the ass to work with, uh, they're not
Yeah.
collaborating again. There's not enough money in this business to deal with jerks.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean it's just like it's it's
I mean, that's somewhat true in life,
yeah.
but 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 this business seems to really
Yeah.
weed out a lot of the jerks. Um, I'm constantly blown away at how much the industry tries to take. And I don't like saying the industry because I mean, obviously, when we get into corporations, it's a whole different ballgame. But the creators, the 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 people who love it really try to take care of each other.
Yeah.
It seems like every time you turn around, there's a story of, this cartoonist loving that cartoonist who is blown away because they love, I've seen wait a minute, my work? You mean my work?
Yeah.
It's like they both think the other is a rock star,
Yeah.
you know.
It's
So
just the relationships that are built between artists and the fans and things too. Is just really, really amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Jeffrey, thank you so much. Um, Batman and Robin and Howard #1 will be in comic shops a week from Wednesday. Keep your eyes out for other things. We didn't even bring up Lucy and Andy Neanderthal, which I read half of the first one and really enjoyed. It seems like you're doing some deep history research and teaching all at once. Um, and the teacher in me just loves that. When you can make learning education, or when you can make learning
Yeah.
entertaining, that's just perfect.
Yeah, that series it was a lot of work, but a lot of fun to like, it's like I wanted to make Flintstones that like taught science basically and
Right.
um yeah,
Well, and I haven't gotten far enough, but even just early on in a low key way, I mean, one of the things that we like to think that we know more than we ever have now, and that may be true collectively, but Neanderthal era early Homo sapiens, they needed to know individually how to do everything.
yeah.
So no individual knows as much as like a 10-year-old Neanderthal
Yeah.
had to know in case mom or dad
Yeah.
got trampled by a mammoth and they needed to make spears on their own.
Yeah, but do they know who was on the cover of X-Men issue 192?
I,
No, they
no,
don't.
no. And
They
which
don't
is
know
more
that.
important?
Well,
I mean, today, knowing who's on the cover of X-Men 192, but then probably knowing how to make a spearhead.
okay, yeah, fair.
And that's literally where I left off in my Lucy and Andy reading was them making spearheads, and I loved just the little spearhead making class and her trying to figure out, ooh, I can maximize the rock, whereas he's going,
Yeah.
I want to make the most tools. It's like, what spears are you gonna put these little tiny things on? Which is I mean, again, the teacher in me, the low key teaching without explicitly teaching
Hmm.
critical thinking skills. I have a limited resource. Let's not waste it. um, yeah. So, Jeffrey, thank you for your time. Thank you for all of your work.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
hopefully we'll have you back sometime. Um, you're local, so I'm certain I'll see you here and there.
I'm
Um,
I'm around.
yeah, you C2E2 this year?
I will be out of town, so
Okay.
I'm sad to miss it. Like if anyone who's been to C2E2 on Sundays, like it's like the kids' day, and so the past few years done like a drawing demonstration and then emceed the costume contest, which is
Oh,
like
Oh, that's wonderful.
amazing. So I'll miss that this year, but
there will be more. I don't think it's going anywhere.
yeah, I'm pretty sure I'll be back next year if I'm
Very cool.
not otherwise engaged.
Do you have any other scheduled things that you want to plug, shout out, or are you
Oh geez, probably,
ready for your
but
next cup of coffee?
I'm ready for the yeah, I'm like on the last
On the,
few
I get it.
sips here.
I get it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, for my friend Sarah, for Jeffrey Brown, we will see you after the next page.
Hey guys, this is Tyler from 22 Panels. I'm here to tell you all about our Patreon. If you enjoy this show, please consider donating to our Patreon to keep this show going. We have many different tiers, all different levels to help you decide what's right for you. Okay, so get on out there to patreon.com/22 Panels Podcast.